down the strip.
Who is that besides Hector?
Oh,
Nice, Seth. Classy.
All right, we got the live Facebook feed on. I'm going to drop the link in the Between Wall and Main forum. And then guess what, folks? 1 second. I have a tip for myself. Next time, have the headlines pre-written so I can just copy and paste them. Hey, what a concept. Okay, we got that. Let's let a new person in the Facebook group who's requested to join. And we're live. Good morning. Happy Friday. Today is Friday, July 28th, 2017. Let's flex those muscles. Let's get those brains working. Get the blood flowing, right? And good morning, Hector.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good.
All right. We still have some people kind of strolling in. We have some comments in the chat. Chris McLam says, good morning. It's been a long time. Yes, it has. Sandra said, happy Friday to all. Dan Martin says, liked seeing your boy Hector. Love the home office. And then I assume the comment, please don't, is in reference to me taking my clothes off. And Tiffany says, good morning.
Hey, Seth.
They read my mind.
The people on the panel aren't showing. Is that?
Well, it's because some people don't have their video turned on.
No, I mean, it's only showing the speaker.
I don't know.
Okay.
I see everybody.
I see
the
them all.
main
Yeah,
screen.
well, we can see each other, but I was
No,
just-
I see them all too. So
Yeah.
The main screen is only going to show the person with the dominant audio. So,
Right.
Dominant audio. I could take over. I could do that.
There you go.
Hector, it might be a close competition. So no, and I'm actually looking at the live feed now, and I see it moving around between me and you, Sarah, and Hector. So
Right.
we're all good. We're all good. So what was okay? So we're good. Good morning, Carmen. She says, "Oh, how did I forget two powerful minds?" I don't know what we're talking
Mark
about.
was funny because he said, "Wait a minute, where's your outer nerd? Because you guys are not introverts."
The inner nerd. We got more people joining in on the panel, so we're just gonna, before we really get rolling, I'm gonna let people stroll in here. All the latecomers. There's Suchi. She's on the phone. I hope it's a good conversation. I hope it's a new client. You want us to help you close them, Suchi? Just raise your hand and wave hello. We did that in one of our 97 and up calls. We actually helped somebody prepare to close a prospect. We helped her come up with her pricing. And then in another call, just as we were starting, I happened to get on the phone with a prospect. So everybody say goodbye to my wife. She's going to work. So we had a prospect I was on the phone with just as the call was starting. I'm like, screw it, let's let the group be a fly on the wall. And they listened to me, have my sales call with my prospect. And of course, we've got it recorded. And they all said it was very interesting.
So did you tell the prospect that it was being recorded?
I did not.
Well, I guess the bigger question was the prospect's voice on the.
Yeah. They could hear. I had them on speaker right by my microphone. And, so they could hear both sides of the conversation. They could hear him. They could hear me. I wanted them to hear how I talk to prospects and how I kind of close the deal.
I think you're supposed to say this call is being recorded for quality control purposes. Facebook Live.
I did. I said it in a whisper.
Right.
Don't tell anyone, Seth.
I said it in a whisper.
Yeah, we won't say a thing.
Now the very fact that I admitted that has been recorded here, so we're all good.
It probably wouldn't be a problem unless they actually became a client, and then you're looking at your videos later, and they're going,
and they actually heard it.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And I would say, "Oh, that wasn't you. That was someone else." Squirrel. So we've got a lot of people on. Quick housekeeping. Most of y'all came in as muted. If you do want to say something, ask a question, please feel free, but make sure you unmute yourself or we will not know that you asked a question. And in case you don't know how to do that, move your mouse over the panel where you're seeing this Brady Bunch-like view of everybody and you'll see a toolbar at the bottom, and towards the left, you'll see your controls for your microphone and your video. You can turn on your camera. You can turn off your camera. Say hello. Don't be shy. I didn't put any makeup on this morning, and my camera's on, so no excuses. Everybody wish Tiffany Stewart a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tiffany.
I'll spare you the singing. And let's do some questions. So Kyla, who I don't believe is even here with us today during registration, asked, what is my favorite adventure with my dogs? And honest answer is probably walking them every day. I love that time of day. That's, you know, I talk about meditating a lot. That's not what I consider my meditation officially, but it's really as good as a meditation. It's that time I have with them. I don't usually have my phone with me, and it's just me and the dogs walking around the block. My most peaceful time of day, just about. Probably right alongside the time I spend actually meditating. Gina wants to know, what is your favorite client engagements? So Hector, you want to answer that? What's your favorite kind of client engagement?
I like clients that create, mostly anyone that's on manufacturing, anyone that builds from zero to nothing, from nothing to something. I love starting from the, being involved with them in the planning stage, understanding what is it that they're trying to achieve, and if they do create something, I love to celebrate that with them. Many a times when I work with manufacturers, I get free stuff from whatever it is that they're manufacturing. They usually give me one or two. I mean, they're most of them, a lot of the things I don't even need. But I just like feeling that I was, at least from a financial perspective, numerical perspective, I was part of the creation process. So love working with manufacturing companies.
Gotcha. Excellent. And for me, my favorite kind of engagement, my favorite kind of client are the clients that pay. And I'm actually falling in love with the e-commerce clients. To be honest, before this year, I'd resisted taking them on because of the complexities. And now that I chose to take on that kind of client, I sort of reluctantly caved with a guy who had been really asking me strongly to take him on and help him. And I finally caved in. And then with him along came another e-commerce client. So I got two like in the same week. And I think my favorite kind of client engagement, and what underscores why I'm really glad I took these two clients on. One, they're a pleasure to work with. That's probably first and foremost. I like clients who are enjoyable to work with, that really kind of appreciate what we do. And, it's not about the money. It's about what we can accomplish together. I love, those are my favorite in a very generic way. But what I especially love about the e-commerce client model now is that for me, it's like putting a puzzle together. There's so many moving parts. And it's a matter of trying to figure out, and we talk all the time about the apps and the ecosystem and the tools that we use. I love the fact that I have a challenge, that I've had this challenge now of trying to figure out, all right, what do we use? How do I get the information from authorized.net that's going into PayPal, that's going into the bank account? How do I get it all to flow and connect, right? How do I get a sales receipt into QBO that's got everything in it at the right amounts, and that ultimately I can reconcile with the payment and the fees that were taken out and get that all tied to the bank. And it just gives me such a feeling of satisfaction when I can figure out a system that I know is going to work across the board, for all of the transactions.
Plus, to add to that, e-commerce in particular, it's one of the type of industries that if you solve some data flow issues quickly, you see immediate time savings. So a lot of the manufacturing clients or construction clients, those take a very long time for you to start appreciating your work. You have to wait until the whole inventory cycle goes through to then understand the inventory value, or you have to wait for the 2 or 3 construction projects to be finished to compare them with the work in progress. But in e-commerce in particular, some immediate wins are felt right away with time savings, especially, there's a lot of potential manual data entry with e-commerce. Right. And I agree with Seth, like having the ability to think through kind of like a puzzle, or I'm a big fan of board games, and I like when board games are designed to give you choices, like, trade-offs. You can take a shortcut, but take a high risk, or go the long route, and get a bigger reward. We have to wait longer for the reward. So I kind of like the concept of being in control of which route we're going to take. Are we going to take the long route and enjoy the reports, the detail on the reports, or we're going to take the shortcut and enjoy the rest of the day. But hey, the reports may not be as detailed, right? So I mean, I like being part of that process of making that decision up front.
Right. And I wanted to add something to that. The more complex the business model that you choose to take on as a consultant, the more you can charge for it. Right. So that's one thing from day one, like long before there was QBO. When I first started out, I was a young little tyke just coming off the streets of Hollywood, trying to figure out how to make a living. I had a decision to make. And early on, it just, I think, well, obviously there's a lot of routes you can go. But the decision I made early on was I want to find niches, whatever you want to call it. I want to find industries that I can work on that present challenges, because fewer people are going to be willing to serve those industries because they present challenges. And based on that, it goes back to what I've been saying a lot in the last couple of years, supply and demand now, right? There's short supply of people who can provide the services for these industries, which means there's high demand compared with that supply, which means you can charge more, right? Supply and demand, the only thing that truly drives the price of a product or service. And so I played that game. I know other people who have said, no, I don't want that complexity. I'm going to focus on simple service-based businesses, and they're generating their business on volume, right? They're doing a lot of probably small fee clients and taking on a lot of them because you can churn those all month long, and it doesn't take a lot of time or resources to do them. So, those are kind of the two extremes. We can do big ticket items based on a very specialized niche that not a lot of people are willing to take on, or we can do, high volume, low fee, easy clients that don't take a lot of resources to get them done. And there's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of what you prefer and what's, like I often say, just like how we base our pricing, I often like to say, do what gets you excited to get up and start your day every day. So if you get excited by the puzzle, by the complexity, then do that. If you get excited by being able to do volume, so you can generate a lot of money without having to put forth a lot of effort on any individual one, you're also hedged well in that model, because if you lose a few clients, it doesn't hurt, right? If I lose a few clients, it's gonna sting, right? Because I charge high fees. So I lose a few clients, I lose a lot of money, potentially very quickly and easily. So
the other thing about complexity, just to add on to that, Seth, when I look at potential complexity on a job, I try to break them down into three buckets. Okay, we're gonna have the financial complexity, which has a couple of moving parts. One is, how much money is it going to take to get this project completed, and I'm specifically concerned, can they pay me, right? So am I going to be part of this project or not? Two, what is going to be the financial result from the solution of this complex project? Are they going to get the return on investment, et cetera, et cetera? So that's kind of like the financial part of it. But there's two other aspects to project complexity that I think a lot of us accountants forget to look at. We only look at the financial part. There are two pieces. We're going to have the people complexity, and we're going to have what I call the strategic/process complexity. So number one, are the people involved in this project coachable, trainable? Do they want change? Because a lot of people call you and want your services, but they're just trying to tick it off the checklist that I call the expert and I hired them, but deep inside, they don't want it to change. They don't want an improvement.
I agree. That's my biggest problem, Hector, is finding people that want to do what you suggest for them.
Yeah, this is that's a key. So whenever I decide to take on a client, I kind of write it down. I'm like, okay, where are my, what does complexity look like in these three dimensions? So on the financial part, we have to ask the client, hey, how much financial reward are you going to get at the completion of this project? Now, I'm not talking about the $200-300 bookkeeping a month clients. That's not really a project per se, and that's mostly just compliance, get it off their list. We're talking about, like Seth says, e-commerce. You can never take on e-commerce, just turn it on and then it will be a fixed monthly fee. E-commerce has a long one-time setup, just like anything with inventory. It's got a pretty long one-time setup. There's people training, there's the lists, the item list, the sync, the integration. So you got to figure out with the client, they say, what is going to be the long-term reward on us taking on this project? What are you going to earn, or what are you going to save at the end of the successful project? We need to quantify that, because if your savings is going to be $1,000 and it's going to take me $5,000 to finish this, realistically, because it's going to take us 2-3 months to do this, is it even worth taking on? So you want to have that conversation right off the bat to make sure that we just completely eliminate those, because a lot of times we just want to take them and see what happens. And us, we believe so much in our capacity to help people that we're like, it's okay, I'll figure it out. But then we sometimes we don't realize that they don't want to. So we got the people issue, and then we have what I call a strategic/process issues. I kind of bundle them into two so I don't break them into two separate ones. So it's the business model itself even lend itself to a change or something, right? So, if Seth is going to take an e-commerce client and their business model is we work from home, husband and wife does the work, et cetera, and then Seth has to show someone some sort of advanced Excel technique that they need to clean up some data before they can import it, and their business model doesn't have people and staff that can do that, and they can't afford Seth David to do it. Why even start in the first place? So we have to look at that. We have to study their business model and understand if their infrastructure it's even set up for us to overtake a project of any sort of complexity. Then we're going to talk about the process. So let's say they do have in the model, they do have the people, they do have the resources, but are they allocating the time for it? Are they, do they have an old process that that pretty much everybody thinks is the rule of the land, the law of the land, and nobody can change it. So let me give you an example. I have some clients here in Miami in which there is, according to all 12 employees, there's a company policy that things have to be done this way, right? You got to go take the paper, make a photocopy on a red paper, and then John has to sign it, and then John has to put it on this folder, and then everybody knows that's the rule and that's the law. And you tell people, why is that the rule and the law? And they're like, well, that's how I was taught, and that's how they were taught. And then we go talk to the manager or the owner and say, hey, why is that the rule or the law? And they're like, well, I don't know. They came up with it, and then it's worked. I'm like, but you came to me and you told me that you want to change that, and everybody else says that's their law. We can't change it. So a lot of times, these companies have this weird, strange, implicit laws of the way things need to be done. And if you can't break through them right away, understand, is this written somewhere? Did you sign an agreement that you'll get fired if you don't do it? It'll be very hard for you to achieve some major change. So you got to take a look at that. It's a strategy and process potentially getting on the way of you doing some sort of complex project. I just wanted to add that to it, to the Seth notes about clients with complexity.
See, and I'm interested in finding out more about why this may be, because I don't have this problem at all. In fact, I can say probably almost without exception, every client who comes in my door comes in wanting me to tell them exactly what to do and completely willing to do anything I suggest, barring I'm suggesting something that's overly cost prohibitive. I don't have that problem at all. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't think it's because I'm so wonderful. I wonder if it'd be interesting, I think, to do some research and find out if it's because of the way the clients are coming in or what I'm doing to attract the kind of client. I have no idea. Maybe it's because the videos, but Hector, you do a lot of videos too. So I imagine you and I have some similarities there. I just don't generally find I have this issue. Most of the time, if I say to a client, hey, I think we should use Bilbies to start tracking receipts, they're going to be like, okay, tell me what to do, or they'll come straight out to me and say, hey, Seth, I don't know what to do here. You tell me. It's very rare that I find I suggest something to a client and they say, no, I don't want to do that. Again, like I said, unless it's cost prohibitive somehow. So it's interesting.
I agree with you, Seth. I would say some of the newer clients, startups, maybe with not that much staff, the ones that don't come with so many bad habits, those are much easier to just tell them, hey, I think you should do this. And I'll when they get really stubborn, I'll say, hey, look, I'm gonna go ahead and use my clout to credibility here. Like I'm gonna show you my credentials and tell you, listen to me. And then sometimes it works. But I'm talking about maybe those that have been in business for maybe 15 years. They've been in business for longer that I've been practicing. When you get there, everybody is couple of decades older than me, it's not as easy for me to just break through and change a process.
Right.
Even if I have the full ear of one of two of the people in the office that maybe they've been following me on YouTube or whatever, right? So I do have the credibility. I still have to break through 12 people, 15 people. I'm talking about more about those company dynamics where the staff itself it's stubborn. And
Right.
I know you had those. I mean, maybe that's not the bulk of clients you deal with now, but I'm sure when you used to go on site and you go to these companies with staff members, people that have been there for 15, 20 years doing it one way, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that. And I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm saying make sure that it's part of your initial client intake process to write them down, to list them up, to talk about them. And a lot of times, one thing I made a mistake on is I thought my role was to come in, talk to the CEO, make decisions, and move forward. And when the CEO allows me to say, hey, let me spend a couple hours talking to your staff, if you don't mind. Just frame it that I'm a consultant. I'm looking for opportunities to improve computer processes. Just tell them I'm an IT guy. And then they talk to IT guys for some reason, right? So I come in there as the IT guy and then I ask him, hey, what's wrong with your computer? Does your computer give you issues? And then everybody has computer drama issues. So if you start like that, you're going to have their full ear because they think somehow you came to fix that. So after they tell you that the Gmail gets locked up and all that stuff, then you start asking questions that have to do with accounting processes, with controls and stuff like that. But you have to throw them into the stuff that they're willing to tell you about. And then you let them tell you all the IT drama and stuff like that, and write down the notes, and then go back to the person and say, look, it looks like the problem you're trying to solve may have 2 or 3 bottlenecks. For example, Kathy is complaining about her printer all day long, and you can't get it over the whole printer issue. How are you going to get her to switch to QuickBooks Enterprise or whatever the engagement is? So a lot of times you have to just talk to the staff, figure out what are the little things that bother them, and usually through those you get that rapport, and then or sometimes they'll tell you about the big things, or sometimes they don't know, but their communication will between the lines tell you what the big things are. And then you go back to the CEO, the decision maker, and say, look, your plan is great, our plan is great, well, maybe we have to fix these little things before, or maybe incorporate them into the engagement. As Seth says, you can charge more because essentially you're going to be doing more, not just accounting work, not just control work, not just IT work. There may be some psychology work and some coaching and some training along the way.
And really it's about, and I want to address some of the comments in the chat here. It's about, looking at their process and systems. Of course, they need to have processes and systems and need to have rules about what needs to be done and in what order and in what color. But at the same time, we also do need to evaluate those processes and see, are they outdated? Are they processes that were created 20 years ago based on a paper system that needs to be completely turned upside down because there's a whole new way of doing things? And, to piggyback on what Hector just finished off saying, I think it's important to look at things from the standpoint of how to make their entire business process more efficient. I think when we talk about how we're less transactional now because of all the automation, so that we need to be more strategic, I think that's where a lot of the strategic guidance that people are looking to us for comes in, is in looking at their processes and seeing what can we make run more efficiently. We're learning how to use the apps to make our own businesses more efficient. Of course, we should turn around and do the same thing for our own clients and say, hey, you know what? The bookkeeping part, kind of easy at this point for the most part, right? Once I get the system set up around that, I'm babysitting the bank feeds. I'm making sure things get coded correctly. I'm reviewing the balance sheet and P&L to make sure that everything is accurate, right? I'm doing my own little review process. But beyond that, where am I really consulting with the client? How am I really helping them? I think it's right there. I think it's in the strategies, because the more efficient I can get a company to run, the more profitable they're going to become. And that's where I can really hit them over the head with the value that I'm bringing.
Right. I mean, Joe Woodard says on his conferences, and it's either original work from him or compendium of all. It says you charge a percentage of the wealth you build. I mean, it can't. I mean, the one of the hardest things for a lot of us is to quote unquote justify our fees or whatever it happens to be. You have to be able to quantify the wealth that you're building. Okay, wealth is not just profit. Wealth is also time savings. Wealth is giving a business owner the capacity to take a vacation. Every year I try to figure out what my goal is. What's my goal? I started January. I was very frustrated because I hadn't taken a vacation for a while, and I was thinking about my clients, And I'm like, a lot of my clients also are in the same boat. You know, like I tell them, hey, have you taken a vacation? No. So one of the things I'm doing now is telling clients, hey, have you taken a vacation? And the ones that say no, or no way, or whatever, I say, well, tell you what, my job is whatever I do to help you take a vacation. And then people go, huh, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, I have to figure out somehow a way for you to delegate work to your staff, feel confidence, and make at least $5,000 more a year so you can both take a vacation and do it worry-free. And people say, huh, that's interesting. Why do you say that? I'm like, well, I'm kind of on the same boat, man. I've been working for 9 years since I opened my practice, and I hardly ever have time to take a vacation. So, you know, when you think about charging a percentage of the wealth you create, it's not always a monetary number. Think about how much is an actual vacation every year where you can disconnect from your business worth to your clients. So always think about that. Charge a percentage of the wealth you build. And like Seth says, you know, when I come in, that's my goal. Can I build these people wealth, whether it's monetary or not?
Yep. And ultimately, the way to gauge that, of course, hopefully I shouldn't have to tell you this, but just in case we're not thinking this through all the way, is measuring the equity section of the client's balance sheet and comparing what it was when I started with what it is a year after, and really looking to build that equity section, which means, by the way, encouraging clients to stop taking distributions and think about the fact that we want to reinvest that money into the company, right? And that's where we really want to start analyzing the statement of cash flows, because that's how I can ultimately prove my worth as their advisor, by showing them, here's what I helped you do. When I told you stop taking so much money out of the company because you need that, that's your bloodline for the business. This is the result, right? Now, of course, that has to be balanced with what kind of entity are they? Are they an S corp where they need to take salaries? Then, of course, I'm really going to hit them hard with that one. If they're an LLC or sole proprietor, not as important. But the point is that I want to manage things that way for clients at the end of the day. If I want to be the more strategic advisor, then I really want to look at things from the standpoint of how do I build the wealth of this company so that even if they tell me they have no intention of selling, I sort of treat them as though that might be their intention, because they might tell me that for 5 years. And then in year 6, they turn around and say, hey, you know what? I've got an offer. I never thought I'd do this, but I'm considering it now. And now we're prepared for that. And if they never sell, fine. So I've built a company with a very solid balance sheet that's got great equity so that they have something nice to retire on or whatever or hand off to their offspring or whatever they're going to do with it, right? So it's never going to be a hurtful strategy to work from the standpoint of wanting to build the equity section of that balance sheet. Right. To me, that's the ultimate goal that I have with every client, is I want to see that equity section grow. I want to be able to run a graph on the equity of their balance sheet, month over month and year over year, and see that upward trend constantly going.
And to add on to that, every business, and this is the advice that I give, this is actually, I have a few things that I call blanket advice. It's advice that I give to everyone, no matter what they look like, what they sound like, how much money they have. Okay. Blanket advice that they give. And by the way, this should be a small few, because an advisor should always do everything custom, understand the client, et cetera, et cetera. But blanket advice, when you start a business, think of your exit strategy right from the get-go. Okay. Why is that important? One, you're going to invest time and money into this business. If you don't have an exit strategy, there's potentially you putting money in a toilet, right? So that's a really important piece. If there are partners involved, okay, remember, everyone starts a partnership in a honeymoon, and the divorces end pretty nasty. So if there's a partnership involved, you want to think through right off the bat, Seth and I, let's go into a business together. First thing I'm going to do, and I love Seth, but there's a chance that I may not love Seth once I work with him. But I say, Seth, we're going to go into business together. Let me ask you a question. If I, Hector Garcia, on my own accord, want to exit, on no questions asked, what's my process? Write it down. If Seth wants to leave on his own accord, how can he do that? If either of us want to sell part of our equity or bring another partner in, how do we do that? Like, you want to talk about those things right off the bat, because at the beginning, in the honeymoon stage, everybody's dreaming, everybody's hoping, but there needs to be an exit strategy. And even if there isn't a partnership involved, there's no sense for you to build a business that lives with you. It's nonsense. Okay, the business has to have a legacy, has to train staff to take over, or it needs to be something of value that you can sell. Otherwise, it's just an alter ego. It's just an entity for reducing a little bit of taxes. It's for an entity for reducing liability. That the corporation needs to have its own value by itself. And I know Seth comes from a financial background as well. Seth, that for the most part, whenever we do a valuation model to figure out how much a company is worth, one of the most important components is growth. And growth is financially measured by retained earnings. So to speak in accounting terms. So growth, which is possibly a subjective term, it's financially measured based on retained earnings. So the company grows based on how much earnings they keep. Okay, so a company always has to make the choice: do I pay a dividend or a distribution, whatever you want to call it, or do I keep the money in there and I grow it? Okay, you guys know one of the most valuable companies in the world, Berkshire Hathaway. They had a policy of growth. Right? They pay no dividends. Do they still pay dividends, Seth? I mean, you may know this.
I don't know. I just look at their stock price every day and think, man, I hope one day I can afford one share.
Right, one share. but that's the point. Right? Berkshire Hathaway doesn't pay dividends. This is the strategy. You're buying for growth. Whereas Microsoft is a whole other story. Microsoft, it's an equity dividend payer. Like Microsoft wants to reward their investors with a piece of the game. It's one of the technology companies that pays the most dividend, the earnings per share ratio, whatever it is. So I mean, there's two different strategies, and then Microsoft has growth too. But you want to try to instill in their brain that keeping wealth inside the business is worth a lot, and especially because when it comes to finance, that's another blanket statement that I'll make.
By the way, real quick,
go ahead.
Berkshire Hathaway's last trade, the last share that sold on their A-class stock was a single share, mind you, $260,329.02 for one share.
And they don't pay dividends. Christine Galley is saying that. She's checked them. They still don't pay dividends.
Yep.
Right. And they don't believe in splits also.
Well, no companies are splitting anymore. That's almost like a fad, right?
Right.
Companies stop splitting because they want to do like Google and Amazon, where the stock just keeps going up and up and up and up. And that's a whole nother strategy unto itself.
Right. Correct. So Seth, you want to switch over to technical stuff?
Yeah, so let's shift gears a little bit. We did take a poll, and this is going to be relevant to what we're going to be going over here in a minute. We polled how many people are using Gmail. I shared the results. I've never been on the other side of this, so I'm assuming you can all see this because I did click a button that says share results. So we have 83% who are using Gmail and only 17% saying not. And we had, it looks like 24 people voting out of 29 who are in the panel. So
in a very strange pivot, I've taken over the screen share and I'm showing you my Gmail account. That was one of the worst pivots I ever done, going from Berkshire Hathaway to Gmail tricks. I'm sure we can pull this one off. Okay, so I'm gonna move this thing out of the way here. Okay, so this page here called Search Operators You Can Use with Gmail. I hope that everyone in this call and everyone on earth that uses Gmail knows about this page. If you don't, I'm sorry you've been living under a rock. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're supposed to know about this. And let me tell you why I mean that. I'm gonna go in the chat and put on a short URL that I created for it. So where is the chat? I don't think I can do it while I'm sharing a screen. It's
exit full screen mode to go to chat to be able to see it.
Yep. So I have to exit full screen mode. Sorry about that. I'm actually a new user of Zoom. Well, okay, just here it is. bit.ly Gmail shortcuts. Okay, bit.ly/Gmail shortcuts. You can see it there. If you go there, it goes straight into this page, or you can just Google Gmail search operators. But let me show you what this is. The search operators are really, really neat because they allow you to create a filtering within your Gmail search. Okay, so for example, this one here called has attachment. So if I'm going into my search results here and I want to search for an email from Seth, I can always just type Seth David, type his email and click search, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of results. But then I only want to see the emails that have attachment. So after the search result, I'm going to put here has, H-A-S, colon, and then just type attachment. So all I do is I put has attachment, and now the search itself will give me anything that has an attachment that has the word the email in it. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the email comes from him. It just means that the email shows up somewhere in the email. So if there's an email sent to a bunch of people, like this emails here from Allison Ball, which they're directed to me and him, and it has an attachment, so that shows up. So if I want an email from Seth that has an attachment, then I'm going to use the from operator. You zoom this in. So I put from his email and then has column attachment, and then I'll click on search, and then that would only show me the emails that he sent or any threads in which he has sent an email, and it has an attachment as well. Now let me show you something else that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to go from Seth David, and I'm going to put newer Dan. So I'm going to put newer _ Dan. And Seth, can you see that when I zoom in like this? Can you see that? Just want to make sure. Seth, can you hear me?
We cannot see.
Sorry, I stepped away for a second.
No problem. So
I'm
can you
here.
see? Can you see when I zoom in or no?
I mean, I can see your screen very clearly.
Okay, so I'm zooming in, and I'm here where it says newer Dan, right here, newer Dan. I put 3D. So what that means is emails from Seth that are newer than 3 days, or I can put emails from Seth newer than 10 days, or emails from Seth that are newer than 200 days. Okay, and that's all in that page I was showing you, the operator page. Now you also have label. So for example, if I add a label to it, so let's say for example some of Seth emails, I want to label them a specific way. Like for example, I'm going to come in here, and then I'm going to add a label, and then I'm going to do a label called Seth Spam. Okay, so this is this is my Seth Spam label. So I'm going to just label that one as Seth Spam, and then I'm going to go back to my regular life looking at my email, and then I can come here and put label, colon, and put Seth Spam, and that will find my Seth Spam email. Now I'll show you something else. I'm going to grab another email at random, hopefully something that's spam somewhere here, this one, and I'm going to label this one Seth Spam as well. Okay, so that's done. Okay, well, make sure that's labeled Seth Spam. Apply. Okay, go back to my regular inbox, and when I do a label search, so I'm going to do label Seth Spam, that will find my 2 emails from Seth Spam, and then I can use another operator like from Seth, and it will only give me Seth email that has that label in it.
Now, Hector, do me a favor. Click the drop-down arrow on the search, right? On the search box where you've been typing the criteria to the right. Yep. Click the drop-down arrow, though, to the right. Like there's a faint little drop-down arrow in the there we go. Click that. So without having to use the actual codes, a lot of it can be accomplished right here in this screen, where you can be specific about where you're searching and who it's from, and has the words and has attachment. You can check off there. So a lot of what Hector's showing you, you can do without even knowing the codes right from here.
Right. Yeah, you can go straight from there, but there are some. Okay, so that's important. That's there, but there are some things that are not on here. Like for example,
not everything is there. That's correct.
Right. So I'm going to put BCC Hector, and then this will give me all the emails in which I was BCC'd. And that could in itself be its own value by itself.
Can you save that search so you don't have to type all that?
You can create a filter. So if he clicks the drop down there, notice there it says create filter with the search. That's how you save it.
Correct. Cool. So after you do the search, you click on create filter with the search, and then I can just call this one, whatever I want to call it.
And notice the checkbox also apply to matching conversations, so that will go through all the history and apply the filter to everything in your whole email ecosystem here that matches the search criteria.
Exactly.
And you can apply a label to it. That's really how I would save the search, is by applying a label that I would create based on what represents that search.
Yeah, so I can a new label. I can call this
Seth
Hector
spam or whatever,
BCC
yeah.
or something like that,
Yeah.
right? So then that will always be in my label. So I mean, you could always pull it up later, pull it up from your labels here, or you can do the search and just put label Hector BCC, and then that will pull on. Well, I guess I didn't save it, but that's kind of like how the process works.
Yep.
Now I want to show you something else. I don't want to leave Gmail yet. If you actually go to Google and you type Chrome extensions, I'm just going to show you that just in case you've never done a Chrome extension. Seth, I know you have, but I'm saying just in case anybody else hasn't. So I'm going to put Chrome extensions in the search. It's just a regular Chrome extension search, and you click on that, and that's going to take you to the web store for Chrome extensions. There's hundreds of awesome, amazing Chrome extensions, and I don't want to talk about all of them, but I'll talk about two of them. One of them is called KeyRocket, and it's very, very simple. KeyRocket is a let's call it a shortcut trainer for Gmail. And once you load it, it's free. Then you're in your email. Let me just show you something. And your email, I'm going to pick up one of the emails here. So I'm going to pick up the email that Seth just sent me just now. And I'm going to open it. And I want you to notice something. I want you to notice right on the right side of the screen, I want you to notice a little pop-up that shows up. I'm going to click on reply. I'm actually just doing a regular click. And you're going to see this little pop-up that says, hey, you should have pressed R for reply. So it's just reminding you that you should have pressed R instead. Let me do that again. I'm going to click on reply. I'm actually clicking, and it tells you should have hit R for reply. So let me X out of this, and let me show you something. If I just press R on the keyboard, it'll do it, and then it won't tell me that I should have used a shortcut. So what this does is that it looks at opportunities that you've had to use a shortcut instead of actually clicking on something. So let me just, for example, let's say I want to forward this email. I just press F, just regular type F, and it starts a forward. Okay, so R and F, it's simple stuff that you can do. So almost everything you do, like say, for example, important. So you see this little thing here that has a little yellow part. I can label an email important or not. So if it's Seth, definitely not important. So I can hit the minus sign. So minus will label the conversation not important, and plus will label it important. And that has its own little thing, because that would be like a label. So you can do a search. So you can do Seth David is important, right? It will only give me important Seth email. So if I actually go into this email and click on that, label it unimportant, right? Which is the same thing as pressing plus or minus. And then I go back into my search, notice that his email doesn't show up there anymore. Okay.
So some people are asking, what is Boomerang, by the way? They're noticing that.
Okay. I could talk about Boomerang. I wasn't ready for that, but I can do it.
Well, just quickly explain it, because we're actually running short on time here. We've got 20 minutes left. So.
Okay. So for example, let's say I want to say, yes, I am awake. Okay. And then I'm going to click on send later. That's Boomerang, by the way. That's a free app for up to 10 emails. And then I want to put tomorrow morning. That way I can write this email like at 9 o'clock at night, but I can schedule it to be sent in the morning or whatever. And then let me just make sure I log in to the app. And then basically it's scheduled. It's like a send later option. So that's it. It's a little app.
So you will let the person know that you're awake, even though you may not be awake.
Right. I was actually sleeping because I did it at 9 o'clock at night. Exactly. Right. And then once you see that, you're going to see a label called Boomerang Outbox, just to let you know that that's sitting there on your Boomerang. And then I don't want to get into it, but then you can go into Boomerang, which is this little icon here on the right side. It looks like a little rainbow boomerang. If you click on Manage Scheduled Messages, it will take you to the actual app in which you can see all the emails that have been marked for later. So it's in a nutshell a way you can send later. For some weird cosmic reason, Gmail hasn't done a send later function, and that's what Boomerang is.
Hector, with Boomerang, I also use it to have an email that I want to deal with at a future date come back to my inbox on that date. So if I'm having a meeting and we've had a discussion through the email, I have it come back, like an hour before my meeting, so I can go back through my list again.
Yeah, that's
So
how I know a lot of people use Boomerang to keep their inbox kind of clean, because you can do what Tiffany just talked about and have it, rather than forwarding the email to a project management application, which is actually how I handle that kind of thing. You can just have it come back to you at the time where you know you're going to plan on following up on it.
So you want to take over the screen, Seth, and show some things?
Yeah, sure. Let me do that. So just hit stop share, or I can override it if necessary. Let me close down my TD Ameritrade account. I was looking up Berkshire Hathaway. All right, so what do I want to talk about? First of all, one thing I want to show, and where are you? Bear with me 1 second here. All right, I'm going to share my screen. So by the way, and a long time ago, I actually showed this in one of these calls, and I was surprised how many people had not sort of done this kind of thing. But I have my bookmarks insanely organized. I remember Mariette Martinez went crazy when she saw this. She was like, oh my God, I have to do that. And then she started posting screenshots over the next few days on Facebook about how she was, spending what seemed like hours and hours organizing her bookmarks. So I have a folder called The Office. A lot of people ask me, what are the apps that you're using every day? This is pretty much that list, right? So real quick, just to sort of piggyback on the Gmail thing, in addition to what Hector has shown you, what I've got what's called the priority inbox. So what that does is it allows me to organize. You know how Hector was showing you how to mark things important? So it puts the important and unread emails in their own queue right here at the top of my inbox. And then if I scroll down, you'll see what I've starred, which has been read. These are things, obviously, that my rule with starred is this needs to be taken care of today. You'll see there's nothing older, really. Well, there's an old thing from July 4th, but that's because I just wanted to hold it there for a while. Generally speaking, if I star something, it means it needs to be handled today before I go to sleep. And then, of course, after that is all the unread stuff that, for whatever reason, is not marked important. And what really helps me with my kind of email workflow on this is, generally speaking, I can go through all of these and then go mark everything that's left or filter everything that's left for just what's unread. And that will leave me with really just the unread emails that are in this bottommost queue, most of which can just be deleted. And then I go through and I uncheck. As I confirm, I uncheck the things I want to keep. So it's sort of a reverse engineered process where I uncheck the ones I want to keep and just delete everything else. So I usually, even if I have a lot of emails in here, it takes me no more than 5 minutes to get my inbox sort of chiseled down to just the things I really care about and none of the things I don't. So that's called the priority inbox. And the way you get that is over here. If you go into configure inbox. Sorry, no, I always get that wrong.
Just hit the drop down by inbox on the right, on the left.
Well, if you go here into the settings, actually, inbox, and then here's where you choose priority inbox.
Yeah, you can also just hit
I
the
use the
drop
same
down
setting.
on the left where you have your actual inboxes. There's a drop down if you hover over it, and you can just do it from there as well.
Right, so you have the same drop down. Now, the other thing to note, though, while you're in the actual settings area is then you can actually configure the sections, right? So you can change how these sections are organized if you want to. So that's a really cool Gmail setting and a really cool way to organize it. I prefer it this way because, like I said, it really speeds up my workflow. I get the important stuff that's not read yet up top. That's the first thing that I deal with. Then everything else that remains, I select everything unread, reverse engineer, uncheck the things I want to keep, delete everything else. Really, really fast way to manage the email. And then about once a week, I go through my entire inbox with the intention of getting it down to inbox 0. And anything that I need to follow up on, instead of using Boomerang, I just forward it into Activecollab, which is my project management software. So if I want to take, let's see if I've got Hector's reply in here. Hector, did you actually send me that reply?
It will be tomorrow morning because I was.
Oh, that's right. You scheduled it. That's right. All right.
I'll send it. I'll send it now. I'll send it now. Here, send now.
So no, it's fine. It's fine. I can pick something else. So
it's up. It's up. Pull up mine.
All right. So there it is. So let's say I want to follow up on this later. First of all, a couple things. Notice what Nimble just did on the right-hand side of my screen. Nimble is my CRM, and this is part of the reason why I love Nimble, because right here to my right, I've got everything I need to know about Hector, right? And then if I want to really kind of get into
not everything, Seth.
What?
I said not everything. You
I
can
said
add
everything
some
I
more.
need to know.
Yeah, right.
I
Oh,
don't,
okay.
I don't need to know everything. So if I click on Hector's name there, because he's already a contact in Nimble, watch this, Hector. This is going to probably creep you out even a little bit. But so as soon as I open his profile, of course, it crawls the web. It wants to know, is this Hector Garcia? There's no profile image, so I'm thinking maybe not. But let's click over and confirm. Not available. So it just maybe found some weird or old profile. So I'll say no. QBK Accounting, I know, is you. So I'll add that in. Right. So again, it crawls the web and tries to find other profiles that belong to Hector. So this is one of the reasons I love about Nimble. But more importantly, bless you, a lot of CRMs, if I want to keep track of conversations, I have to load that information into the CRM. I either have to copy and paste. Maybe I can forward things. Here, I don't have to do any of that. I go to pending and history. And here's every email that has gone in between myself and Hector. Here are all the tweets. Here are calendar appointments we've both been a part of. Everything that's happened between Hector and myself is all here in one place. I didn't have to do anything to put it there, right? It's just there because I have Nimble connected to Gmail and to Twitter and to everything else in my world. And if I want to, I can filter this and say, just show me the emails, just show me the messages, right?
Looks like
Now,
I'm using the wrong CRM software.
This is why I love Nimble. This is why I scream. And everybody thinks I only love Nimble because of the social part of it. That's not it. The social part of it is huge, but this is why I truly love Nimble. And so, all right, let's look at something else. Another part of this that I really love. Let's go on to Facebook now.
Well, what I love about this, I just want to say something quick. I put a job posting out there because we're looking for a new full-time bookkeeper for the office, and I'll admit it. Every single person that comes in, we're gonna search them on Facebook, stuff like that. We just want to make sure they're not affiliated with some like weird groups that don't match our culture. So we're sitting there and we are doing the whole Facebook profiling. I think this would be awesome if you just have one click to see everybody's public profile. So, by the way, if you're applying for a job in bookkeeping, don't have pictures of you with a whole bunch of dollar bills, throwing them in the air. It just doesn't jive.
Right. And also don't have pictures on your social media of you like partying and going out and getting drunk and doing, those kinds of things. So looky here. So I go onto Hector's profile on Facebook and I click my little Nimble widget. And again, it brings up almost like a dossier on Hector. Now, of course, it doesn't show anything other than anything that Hector has made public, right? Is this Hector too? There's his LinkedIn profile. Let's add that in. Let's add this one in. That's Twitter, right? And so what happens is Nimble's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for me in terms of sourcing the information that I'd want to have about contacts who are important to me, right? Speaking of contacts who are important to me, let's say I want to make sure that I follow up with Hector on a regular basis. Over here is a little stay in touch guy, and I can have Nimble remind me to stay in touch weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. So let's say I want to harass Hector every week because there's stuff I want to do with Hector. Hector and I are going to make things happen in this world, and we need to follow up weekly to make sure that happens. I can also star him to mark him as important, right? And now what happens is when I go to my today queue in Nimble, first across the top, it's kind of looking at people I may have had interactions with and asking me, is this contact important? And really what it's asking me is this somebody I want to stay in touch with, right? In many cases, it's no. These are people I'm connected with. Maybe I talk to them, but stay in touch with really means there's something I want to do with them. I want to work with them. I want to network with them. I want to do business with them. So I say no, and then it loads up more people. So it's constantly giving me suggestions based on my direct interactions. Now, again, because, let me not get ahead. So then scrolling down, here's all the stay in touch people. You can see I've got some that are overdue that I've marked. And, you can use this however you want. In my case, I actually use this in one way to kind of identify small business influencers. And so I'm staying in touch with them by way of interacting with them on Twitter, looking at what is this. So let's go to Tamara McCleary, for example. And I click over to her. And why did I want to stay in touch with her? Well, I can see from the tag, she's on an influencer list that I have based on Twitter. And a lot of this was actually sourced from a list that I pulled from Gene Marks. And so she's probably, if I check, she's probably got a big Twitter following. I click on social. And sure enough, look, she's got a ton of Twitter followers. She's got a lot of favorites. So she's got a cloud score of 80, which is very hard to attain. My cloud score is about a 60 now, and 60 is considered generally pretty good. 80 is, you have to be like an A-list celebrity practically to get an 80 or above.
Or like a Hector Garcia kind of. Yeah, I know.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. You have to be Hector. Wait, what was your cloud score?
Let's
so
do a
anyway,
cloud off. I think mine's 62. Yeah.
But so the reason I have her on this list of people to follow up on is if I can get her talking to me online, and I can get my name essentially in front of her audience, that could potentially bring on a lot of clients, right? Especially if she's a small business influencer and small businesses are my target clients, then she's a person I would love to get to know and talk to more, right? And so the follow-up with her is going to be probably looking on the right here. And let's just scroll down, and it shows me her social stream. So this is stuff she's recently tweeted. So I'm looking for opportunities to start a conversation with her. Nimble helps me do that, right? So it's not just about keeping track of contacts, and yet has the features I'm not even going to bother showing you. If I want to track a sales pipeline and say, here's the deal and here's what it's worth, I hate all that stuff. I have no need of that stuff. But this kind of stuff I love because it helps me identify people that I want to network with, and it helps me identify opportunities to start conversations with them, which is what it's really about for me at the end of the day, is starting conversations with people. I don't want to spend time necessarily going directly after my target audience. I want to go after the people who can put me in touch with, in other words, I want 1,000 people in my network who can put me in touch with 10,000 more people, right? That's kind of the strategy here. So this is kind of why I love Nimble. It's nimble. It can pivot around on a lot of different things and makes it really easy. And especially because of the widget, that I can use going on Facebook, or if I go to LinkedIn. All right, I'm going to pick on someone else here for a minute. Gina Rocky, you still with us? There you are. I'm going to pick on Gina. Is it okay if I pick on you?
You can pick on me.
All right, so I'm on Gina's LinkedIn profile. Sometimes Nimble needs a bit of a kickstart. So I close it, open it. And if it still doesn't come up with something, what I may do is you can highlight a name anywhere on the screen. Boom, now it found her. Which, by the way, means whatever project management application I'm working in, I can just highlight somebody's name because I'm in Chrome, pull up the Nimble widget, and boom, I've got my dossier. Right? So this is where, if I'm using Activecollab, let me bring that up. This is the part that I think is really kind of mind-blowing. So if I'm in Activecollab, and let's say here I add a task saying call Hector Garcia, right? And then I'm going to click on this task to open it up. I love Activecollab. I'm going to click on my Nimble widget and let it load. First, it's going to recognize that I'm on Activecollab's website, so it gives me a dossier on the company. But as soon as I highlight Hector Garcia, bada bing, bada boom, it starts finding him, right? And as long as I confirm one result that's him, again, it starts giving me the Hector Garcia dossier. So this is why I love Nimble, because it is nimble. It lets me kind of pivot from anywhere, especially because I'm so much using cloud-based stuff. Anything that I'm using is running in Chrome, which means I can run my Nimble widget and use it to quickly pull up a contact and then click over and get into that contact's information. Right?
What a great way to start a conversation with a client, saying, hey, I noticed you were sharing, the risks about, buying property in Northern Arizona. That was an interesting article. What a great way to start a conversation with a client.
Exactly. Or better still, hey, I noticed you're a Dodgers fan. What did you think of the last game that they won or whatever? And I'm not a sports fan, so I can't really speak to that.
That would require me to know what Dodgers mean, but that's
right. But the point is, you can find out what they're personally interested in. That's an even warmer way to start a conversation. I was on a webinar some years ago where they gave an example. You find out what their personal interests are. So if I happen to have somebody I want to get to know, and I notice because of their social interaction that they are a Dodgers fan, and I live a stone's throw from Dodger Stadium, and I happen to go to a game, and let's say I get an autographed baseball from one of the players, and I couldn't even begin to name a player for you. But let's say I had that, I could send that. I can first of all look up their mailing address for the company, whatever, send them that signed baseball and said with a little note saying, hey, I would love to get the ball rolling. Let's have a call. Something dumb like that. But the point is, yes, Hector, the beauty of this is I can actually, rather than trying to slam a sales message down somebody's throat, I can actually start a real conversation like a real person and just say, hey, let's talk. We have common interests. Let's see what we can do together. Let's see what we can do to help one another.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. So one time I hit in Facebook that I liked Green Bay Packers. I don't know why. I guess I was playing with like what I liked. And for some random reason, a month later, T-Sheet sent me some Green Bay Packers socks. And I was like, why are they sending me Green Bay Packers socks? And I was trying to figure this out. I didn't know. And then I'm like, okay, let me figure this out. So I searched and searched and searched. And I looked somewhere in the bottom of my Facebook profile said that I like the Green Bay Packers. So
now that is good marketing.
That is great marketing. And it says something
brilliant.
Like, track your employee steps or something like that. So they even did that whole, ball rolling thing, and that's one of the things, man, that you can win someone's affection with little details. It's like the little things are the ones that get your affection. I mean, I like these sheets. I use it for my clients. I'm sure there's at least one solution better than it in some situations, but I don't even think about it because they do marketing in that way.
Right. Yep. So Nimble's kind of my favorite CRM. That's why I use it. That's why I use it exclusively for myself. And at the same time, I tell people, you know what? If what you're using, if Zoho CRM works for you, then that's what you should use. I'm never going to be one that goes out there and says, you have to use Nimble because that's what I use. Absolutely not. I don't have that big of an ego. For me, it's more about figure out what's working for you and use it. I've chosen to use Nimble for myself. Earlier in the chat, somebody was asking when we were talking about the e-commerce stuff, and sorry, I forget who it was, but I remember the question, do I use Xero for e-commerce? And the answer is no. And the only reason the answer is no, it has nothing to do with whether or not I think Xero is a good tool for e-commerce clients. The reason I use QBO is I made a decision in my own business, and this was a personal decision, that in order to scale my business the way I wanted to, on the consulting side, I felt the need to go all in with one product, and the product that I chose for that was QuickBooks Online. So consulting wise, I chose to only use QBO, and that's what I do. So that's what I use, and I use QBO, and I use all the apps that work with it. WebGility, WebGility's Unify is an awesome product that I've been using. As a result of using it with a client, I started using it for my own business because I sell a lot of stuff online too, my digital templates and things. So I use QBO. I'm never going to tell anybody this is the tool you have to use. The only one who can really answer that at the end of the day, as far as which tool is the best one for you, is you. At the same time, what I also learned is when a lot of people who come to me and say, hey, Seth, what do you suggest for a CRM? What I used to do is lay out like 3 choices and show them all the features of each so that they could make a decision. And what I found was that seemed to be confusing people more than helping them. So at this point, if somebody asks me, Seth, what do you use for a CRM? I'm going to just show you the one that I use that I've chosen for myself, which happens to be Nimble. You ask me which core accounting GL app, I'm going to tell you QBO because that's what I use. Training-wise, I'll train on anything. If somebody calls me up and says, hey, I need a one-on-one training in Xero, I'll do that all day long. But if somebody wants me to actually do the consulting, do the accounting work for them, they've got to go into QBO. They've got to be in my QBO wholesale account because that way I have one streamlined system that works across the board the same way for everybody. So as I grow and scale my business, I don't have to worry about which bookkeepers are trained in Xero and which ones are trained in QBO. It's all the same. It's homogenous.
Absolutely.
So,
I love it. I'm going to look into Nimble myself. I use one called Insightly. And the reason why I use Insightly was because the Chrome app, the little extension that goes, that you just show with Nimble, it had that. And I guess back then it was like 3 years ago when I got it, was the only one that had that Chrome extension that went to the side. And also it has full Gmail integration. But I've been thinking about this social media integration.
Nimble has it too.
Well.
Are you still looking at my screen?
Yeah.
You see my little Nimble icons down here?
Yep.
So I can enable desktop notifications over here. I can create templates, templated emails with merge tags. So for example, here's a template I created for people who I haven't been in touch with in a while. So if I go, first I want to put a name in there. So let's say I send an email to you, Hector, and then I choose that template. Where is it? Boom. It automatically inserts your name, hey, Hector Garcia, and the email's done. And I can go into Nimble, by the way, and send out 50 of these to 50 people. Each goes out as an individual email, so it's not going to get flagged for spam. So I can do it directly from Nimble because, again, it's connected to my email. Or right here, I have, so if there's kind of a canned response where I'm sending the same information out based on the same natured inquiry over and over again, these templates save a huge amount of time. So Nimble also has, some nice Gmail integrations that it does.
Super nice. Great.
All right, folks, we are out of time. A few people are already dropping off in the chat. So as always, I hope you all found this useful. We didn't even cover half of what we talked about, but I think it was a great conversation. I have no regrets whatsoever.
Get together
Hector?
again.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do it again.
Do it again.
We'll do it again
I'm
soon.
gonna shout out to Mariette. She's watching us on Facebook. I don't know why she didn't come on.
Oh, I haven't checked the Facebook feed in a while.
Yeah, Mariette's been talking to us on Facebook. So shout out to Mariette. She wants to use Nimble.
I'm just looking at the comments now on Facebook. Sorry, I kind of forgot about Facebook. I got so into what we were doing. So, all right, we'll follow up on this, and we'll definitely, Hector, you're welcome back, of course, anytime.
All right, man. Thank you very much for having me. Hi,
Thank you
everybody.
for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, we'll talk to you all later on.
Have a nice weekend.
And don't
Great
forget Gina's
weekend,
hangout
everyone.
later today at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. Just find her on Facebook, and she has a group you can join, and then you'll get the information for how to join the webinar later on today.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.